Unfiltered stories, unapologetic truth, unmistakably brave. Hello and welcome to the Brave as Fuck podcast. My name is Jessica and I am your host. I'm excited, I am honored, I am humbled that you are here again today. All right, so I know the last couple of weeks we've kind of dove into some pretty serious topics, right? We've talked about a lot of different things, what it means to be brave and kind of what characteristics go along with being brave, right? Doing things on your own, going to, dinner or a movie by yourself, navigating the holidays solo. We've talked about, being brave means being vulnerable, being, courageous enough to ask for help, and be real about where you are in your life and that sort of thing. We talked about creating a vision and being intentional about your goals and being reflective. Like we talked about all this really important stuff, okay? And I know it's kind of serious. And outside of my rant on how Walmart tried to fucking ruin Christmas, and if you didn't catch that, go back. I think that was episode 2, all right? Like they really did a number and fucking things up, but I digress. It's been kind of serious around here and I get that. And it's intentional. There's a method to my madness, I promise. I'm kind of laying some framework for us, some foundational principles so that, when we start to share these stories about people who've done really brave things, you'll have a better understanding of how they did them, okay? So I'm not completely crazy and I'm not always a bore, I promise, all right? So anyways, that being said, I thought maybe I'd shift it up a little bit this week, change direction just a touch, all right? I want to dive into one of the many topics we're going to talk about here that is something that I don't feel it impacts everybody in the same way, but I feel it does impact everybody in some way, all right? And that is menopause. Now, I know if you're a man, you're probably thinking, that doesn't impact me. I assure you it fucking does. Whether it is your mother, your sister, your wife, your partner, your boss, a coworker, it is somewhere in your life and you can't escape it, all right? So I need you to stay on and listen to the show as well. It may not impact you in the same way and you might not want all the nitty-gritty details that I might dive into at times, but I think it's really important that you have some basic high-level understanding of what the fuck we're dealing with so that you know how to best support us or just, stay the fuck back and let us manage it because it's a bit of a shit show, okay? And we don't know what's going on with our bodies either or our minds. And I gotta be honest with you, it has probably been one of the most frustrating things that I have experienced and I'm still experiencing. And according to some doctors, I might experience for another fucking 10 years, which holy hell, that better not be the case. I don't know who will survive that. I'm just saying, all right? But if you are going through menopause, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, any of that season, show of hands. And am I right? It is a fucking shit show. And there is a lot more information out there than there was before that is slowly changing and shifting, and it's going to take us a long time before we get anything that's overly helpful. But the resources are limited and they are confusing because there's a lot of contradictory things out there. There's a lot of people who say, do this, do that, do this, do that. And either there's no scientific relevance to what they're saying, they're just making shit up, or they're kind of forgetting to preface every piece of advice that they give is different for everyone because every body, literally body, goes through this season differently. And we suffer from multiple and multitudes of symptoms and they're all different for everybody. And the duration and the severity of those symptoms is different for everybody. And the resolution is different for a lot of folks, okay? So it's a very hard thing to define specifically, and it's hard to manage and navigate, and it's hard to find the right resources and the right solution for you. So it's really important first, let me just tell you, I'm not a doctor, all right? So the things that I will share with you are the things that I've personally tried or experienced, and I can tell you how they impacted me. That doesn't necessarily mean that's how it'll impact you. You might have a better experience than me, you might have a worse experience than me, but I want to kind of talk about what this looks like and why it is so damn difficult. And I want to start the conversation today, but we're going to dive into it deeper. And I plan to have a few folks on the show who have different experiences and different levels of expertise and different resources available that, either they've used or they share or, whatnot their experience might be to offer you a broader perspective than just my own. Okay, because my experience is my experience and everyone's going to be a little bit different and I get that, all right? But I want to start the conversation, and in order to do that, I'm going to share with you my personal story, all right? And so I'll try to keep it as, high enough level that I don't bore you to fucking death, but give you enough information that you'd be like, oh damn, she's been through some shit. Okay, so hear me out on this. So 2017, I had a hysterectomy. The short version of why, a couple things. I had already had 2 children. I had had C-sections for both of them, and I had a tubal ligation. I was experiencing heavy bleeding, all right, without being too graphic or detailed, heavy, and it was causing major issues for me from an iron level and energy level and all those things. So we went through, and there was a couple different choices, but again, I had already had my tubes tied. I already couldn't have children. And so it made sense, and from a health perspective for me, to get a hysterectomy. So I did that in 2017. They chose to leave my ovaries so that they didn't inadvertently push me prematurely into menopause. Theoretically, that was the premise, okay? And it wasn't long after that, probably 6 months to 12 months after that, I was like, okay, something is terribly wrong. I don't feel right. I don't have the same amount of energy. I don't feel the same in my body. Something has changed. I don't understand. I didn't necessarily tie it to the hysterectomy, although that maybe was a thought at the time. I just thought, something's wrong with me. So I went to my doctor at the time, and I said, I don't feel right. I'm gaining weight. I don't have energy. Things hurt, blah, 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 whatever. And she was like, okay, well, it must be your nutrition. It must be, something's going on. You eat too much. Well, I wasn't eating enough. That is a common thing for me. Like, I skip meals often and historically don't get enough calories in my day. So eating too much was, when she said that, I'm like, you're not even listening to me. And then, I talked to her about cortisol and stress and stuff like that. And she said, that has zero impact on your health. That has zero impact on your, your weight and on your body. And I was like, okay, that's when I knew she was a quack. So I got rid of her. Okay. Not like literally, but I decided it was time for a new doctor. So I found another doctor. And I went to her and I told her about my symptoms and the different things that were going on. She's like, oh my gosh, yeah, like absolutely. Let's do some digging into it. And so she ordered some labs, and she ordered a very minimal lab panel. It only had probably 4 or 5 different hormones on it. Thyroid, the main one. It was some estrogen, like a couple different things. Came back and she was like, nope, it all looks normal. I don't really know what to tell you. I could put you on some diet pills and things like that. But other than that, welcome to your middle age. This is what happens. Your metabolism slows down. There's really not a whole lot you can do. Okay. Not the right answer either. And I was frustrated and I felt kind of like defeated, right? Like, okay, well, fuck, I'm going to keep trying to figure it out on my own then, I guess. Thanks. And I was doing different workout programs. I was changing my diet. I was adding things, subtracting things. I just, I cut out a bunch of things and it was just not seeing any kind of real resolution or change. I just didn't feel right. So go forward another year or so and I'm feeling worse. And so I decided to go through, actually through Lifetime Fitness. And I don't know if they still offer this or not, but they offered multiple lab panels that you could order. And they had one that was a full hormonal panel. Okay. Insurance didn't cover it. Insurance doesn't cover shit. Can we just call that out real quick? Like, health insurance doesn't cover health. They cover sickness care, and they love to prescribe drugs and pills, and it's just a fucking shit show. At least it is here in the US, right? But anyways, I digress. So I went to Lifetime and I ordered this lab panel, and it's done through a legit lab, like LabCorp, right? And it was, I don't know, $350, and they covered 150 different biomarkers, something like that. It was a lot. It was extensive. It was several pages long. And it came back, and LabCorp itself called me. The rep from there was like, hi, we just completed your labs, this, that, whatever. And we noticed that your, I think it was the high thyroid antibodies are like through the roof. Basically, there was a couple different numbers on there that indicated that my body was under severe inflammation. No shit. And that it was fighting something internally. It was fighting itself. And she said it was very significant or in alignment with, something like Hashimoto's or an autoimmune response. Something was wrong. And I needed to schedule an appointment with my doctor right away to discuss it and to start digging into what was triggering this response in my body. Okay. So I called my doctor and I told her what they said. And I asked for, some sort of guidance, like, let's talk about this. And she's like, I'm really not concerned with anything on that lab. I mean, yes, that number's through the roof, but your thyroid's fine. So you're good. And that was it. She basically just ended the conversation. And again, reverted back to, I can put you on some sort of diet pill if you'd like. And I'm like, the weight gain is just a part of the problem, right? Like, I was just not feeling okay. I didn't feel myself. So I continued to spin my wheels and I continued to try different programs. And I tried to eat different things. And I was just like, and there was, seasons of that where I'm like, fuck it, I'll just do whatever I want. And who cares? Because it doesn't matter if I do it right or I do it wrong. It doesn't matter what I eat or how much I work out or how little I work out. Like, it didn't matter if I was lifting weights, if I was doing cardio. it didn't matter. I was not okay. And that was frustrating for me. Fast forward a couple more years and symptoms have just increased and got worse and more noticeable and just uncomfortable in my own body, right? So I had a friend who had went to a hormonal doctor and I said, let me try this. It was like an integrative medical specialist, but they specialized in hormonal like therapies and helping people and specifically women and, giving them different solutions through medication and treatments or whatnot. Anyways, I go to see this man, which by the way was appropriate, sexual, like innuendos, touchy-feely, had to have a witness in the room, but I was desperate for a solution. So I sit and I talk to him and I was like, I don't feel good, this, that, whatever. He's like, absolutely, let's run some labs and then we'll talk about it when you come in. So we ran the labs and it was a little bit more extensive than some of the others, but not as extensive as the one that the Lifetime panel had done. I went in and the very first comment that he had to me was like, oh my gosh, you have the energy of like a 90-year-old. And I was like, finally, I feel seen. Like, yes, I do. And it was almost like hopeful because he saw some sort of something and we could address it. Like I wasn't crazy, right? And he also addressed the antibodies being too high. And I was like, well, I took that to my last doctor and she said it was no big deal. And he's like, absolutely, it's a big deal. But his biggest focus was that my testosterone was at 9 and my estrogen was through the roof, and several other things that were very much out of balance. My progesterone had tanked, and then he also was noting that like my hematocrit was too high and I needed to be giving blood. He's like, why isn't your doctor monitoring this? This is very dangerous for you. You could be high risk for stroke. And, and it made sense because once I had a hysterectomy, I was no longer having menstrual periods, and that also made sense why my symptoms were getting worse and worse. Like, things started to click, you guys. Like there's a reason that my body is fighting, but nobody was really dialing into what exactly that reason was or connecting all of the dots yet. So I meet with this doctor and he's like, all right, well, testosterone is tanked and that's your problem. Essentially, that was the thing that he honed in first. And he was like, you need more. I'm a huge advocate for women to have enough testosterone. He's like, it will give you energy. You will lose a ton of weight. It'll increase your libido. You're going to feel amazing. And you're just going to be so grateful you did this. And he wanted to do pellets. That was his first push. He wanted to put in pellets. If you don't know what pellets are, they're like little pellets that they install. I don't know if that's the right word. Inject, put in under your skin, usually in your ass. So that your body can pull testosterone from it as needed, all right? I wasn't really comfortable because I wasn't interested in showing him my ass, all right? And so I opted not to do that. Not to mention that also isn't covered by health insurance because nothing here is. And so it was like $300 every, 60 days or some dumb shit. And I was like, yeah, not really in my budget, not what I'm looking for. So what other options do we have? So he said we could do cream. So we did testosterone cream. Now, I'll caveat that. I typically have to have a much higher dose of basically anything medication wise in order for it to impact me. It's the way my body processes or doesn't process things. I don't know, but whatever. And so he's like, we'll try to do cream, but you can only go so high a dose in that, other than lathering your entire body up from head to toe, which I chose not to do. So we started with the cream just to see if it would work. It did not. It didn't have any impact on my energy or my levels. My body basically didn't absorb it. It wasn't conducive to any kind of change for me. All right. Now, one thing you should know about cream. Ladies, this is important. When you have it on your body, you should really put it in inconspicuous spots. That's not touching other humans, especially like babies, children, or your pets routinely. Because if it's not fully absorbed in your body and it gets onto them and they absorb it in their body, things can happen. It can get a little weird. Trust me, we'll talk about it later, but you just, put it somewhere not out in the open. Okay? So then my other options were they wouldn't do pills for women. It's not approved for women, females. So injections. So I said, all right, let's do the injections. And so I got those and he's like, here's what you start with and we'll move you up and blah, 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 blah. We'll retest your labs. We'll see where it goes. And there we are. So I start the injections and I move up and I'm feeling no different. The only thing that I really noticed when the injections were, I was hungrier. Now, again, I'm someone who skips meals pretty consistently and I don't overeat, even though I may look like it at times. That wasn't always my issue. When I started these, I began to eat more and more to the point where I almost felt like I was insatiable. It was so abnormal for me to be that hungry and I constantly wanted to snack, which now, of course I've got to undo that damage, but that's another point. But anyway, so I started these injections and then I noticed, okay, facial hair, which by the way, that's another symptom of menopause. We'll talk about all the fucking symptoms that it could be, right? But the facial hair was getting worse and I started to freak out. Y'all, listen to me. Listen very closely, okay? Micro penis. Do you know the term? Do you know the term as how it relates to a female? Okay. This doctor warned me that yes, you can, in fact, females, grow a micro penis. If you don't know what that means or what that looks like for a female, you are welcome to Google it, but let me just warn you, you can't unsee it, all right? And so what he was sure to tell me is that if you grow one, or if you happen to notice this forming, it's irreversible. What? Are you fucking kidding me? I can grow a goddamn, like, really? Seriously? What is this life of mine? Like, what is going on right now? So anyways, I live with that fear every day while, we're doing these injections. It was important that you monitor it and you monitor your levels routinely. Okay. So I'm monitoring the levels, and I went from a 9, y'all. Remember, I started at a 9, and not very long after that, I was at 362. Yeah. I was scared too. And so I was like, I'm not sure this is good. And when I sent him the numbers, he was like, oh, yeah, it's great. You probably feel amazing. And I'm like, no, I'm not good. And in fact, I feel dumber. Like, why do I feel worse? And he was like, more testosterone. That's what you need. And I was like, I'm not trying to, change who I am. So I went and found a 4th doctor. And I was like, hi. And they specifically, the whole medical group, all they do is menopause, right? And I'm like, surely they can help me. And so I go to meet with this doctor. And the first thing she tells me when I walk into the room is like, this could last 7 to 10 years. And I'm like, that's not going to work for me. So she's telling me this, and she's like, let's run your labs and see where you're at. And she sees this number, and she's like, oh my God, stop the injections right away. Way too fucking high for a female. Okay, that's what I figured. So good to know. Go with your gut, guys. Like, seriously, when it comes to medical stuff, you've got to advocate for yourself, and you've got to understand that you're the only one that knows your body in and out, right? At that level. And if something feels off, question it. And if they won't listen to you, find someone who does. Okay? That's my PSA. But so she's like, yeah, testosterone, stop the injections right away. She's like, your estrogen has tanked. So when I was up in the 200s, almost 300, it was now down to like 40. And she's like, that's what's contributing to your lack of memory and your inability to focus and your cognitive function. All of that is heavily tied to your estrogen levels. And I had none. I was failing. So it was like, literally, I woke up one day just dumb. Couldn't remember a sentence. I couldn't finish something that I had started. You could ask me how old I was, and I was like, I don't know. Like, I can't even tell you how frustrating that is when you are someone who's notoriously on top of things. I was just dumb. I woke up dumb. All right. So anyways, estrogen was too low. Testosterone was way too fucking high. Progesterone was about right. And that, by the way, the progesterone helped with the night sweats, and it helped me sleep through the night. So that was a game changer for me. And I've kind of just stayed the same with that. So now she's got me on estrogen. Now with estrogen comes the risk of cancer, and it's something you have to monitor. And so like, that's a whole nother concern. And it's like, all right, well, do I really want to do that? No. Do I really want to wake up every day dumb? Also no. So what do I do? So these are things I'm trying to figure out, and rebalance. And I'm grateful that I went to someone else who's like, get off the injections. Don't do that. That's not right. Or, who knows what I could have permanently done to myself if I hadn't listened to my body. So that's important, you guys. You've got to listen to yourself, and you've got to ask questions, and you've got to do your own due diligence and research and all of those things. So we've recently switched those things around, and that was not that long ago, and I am still not where I need to be because my body's still trying to figure it out. It's a process, and it takes time, and it's trial and error, and I hate it because it feels like you go in and you're literally just throwing darts, hoping something sticks, and it fucking sucks because it's exhausting and it's expensive and it's frustrating and it feels defeating when you're like, I know I'm not right, but I don't know what's wrong and I don't know how to fix it. I don't like that feeling, guys. I don't know about you, but I don't like it. So ladies, if you can relate, all right, like let's just for a minute, can we talk about like all the million symptoms that go with menopause, right? Like what is it? There is weight gain, there's acne, there's lack of mental clarity or focus, your memory goes to shit, itching, rashes, muscle achiness, joint achiness, inflammation, your ears can itch too much, you can have issues with, libido, your energy. I mean, the list is endless. It kind of reminds me of, you remember when your kids were real little and you didn't know why they were a pain in the ass when they were born, right? Like maybe they cried all the time and they were inconsolable, or they were angry, or they were biting, or they didn't speak on time, or they would throw things or whatever. And the answer was always, it's colic. I feel like menopause is the fucking colic of adult women. Like, we don't know what's wrong with you, must be menopause. Your hormones will fuck you up if they're not right, and it impacts everybody differently. And again, the longevity of it, the severity of it varies, but it fucking sucks. And if you haven't gone through it, get ready and find a support system. You need it, all right? And guys, if you're still on the show, like, you're awesome. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about my health problems. But if you're on the show, like, you need to support your lady and be like, all right, she's not herself and she doesn't feel herself and she doesn't know how to fix it. And we're trying to figure it out. Oh my God, every other ad is about buy this peptide, buy this cream, eat these foods, don't eat these foods, exercise like this, don't exercise like this, do more cardio, don't do cardio. Oh my God, it's fucking madness, and it's maddening because you don't know what to try, and you don't, even when you do try something, you don't know how long to try or how long it'll take before it fixes, and does it ever fix it, and is it actually impacting you? I mean, there's just so many fucking unknowns and uncertainty. So when I talk about being brave as fuck, like, this is something that comes to mind because, like, you have got to continually show up day in and day out and do your responsibilities, take care of yourself, whether it's going to work or it's taking care of your family or it's just your own fucking healthcare, and you've got to advocate for yourself. You've got to speak up when things don't feel right, and it's a lot, and you've got to be courageous, and you've got to be, persistent in all of it, and it's a lot. All right. So anyways, that's my story. That's my backstory. I'd love to hear your story, your experiences. Share with me, like, what are your symptoms? What have you experienced? How long did you go through it? Are you still going through it? Have you not gone through it yet? What helped you? What didn't help you? What made it worse? Where did you go? Tell us the stories. Hit me up over Bravest Fuck Podcast over on Instagram. Let's start the conversation there, so we have a little bit of a bigger audience and more people can kind of share their 2 cents and their experience with us over there, and we can start talking about this. And like I said, I'm going to bring some folks on the show with various experiences and perspectives and see what we can figure out together. Does that sound good? All right, cool. Well, anyways, thanks for sticking around. Hope to see you next time. Bye.